In this video, I'm going to be talking about seventh chords. Seventh chords are very similar to triads. In fact, they contain triads. It's a triad plus an extra note. That extra note happens to create the interval of a seventh between the root and that extra note. So for example, here's a C major triad, C, E, G. If I slap a B on top of that chord, this now becomes a seventh chord. There's a C major triad plus the interval of a major seventh between C and B. There's two portions of a seventh chord that you need to take into account when determining its quality, and that's the triad quality plus the seventh quality. In this situation, you have a major triad and a major seventh. Therefore, this is a major seventh chord. So both portions have to be major for it to be a major seventh chord. Now, if I take the same major triad, and this time, instead of it being a B natural, I turn it into a B flat. This is a different quality of seventh chord. We still have a major triad on the bottom. Those notes haven't changed. But the interval between the C and the B flat now is a minor seventh as opposed to a major seventh. So the technical term for this chord is a major minor seventh chord. That's a term that works, but it's not very common. The most common term for this particular quality of seventh chord is the dominant seventh. And the reason it's called dominant will become a little bit more clear as we get into chord function. But a dominant seventh is one that is major minor in quality, which means it has a major triad and a minor seventh. If you ever hear a seventh chord referred to as just seventh without any qualifier for the quality, it is assumed that it's a dominant seventh. This is the most common type of seventh chord, and if you ever hear seventh, like if you ever hear a chord referred to as a G7 or a C7, like for example, this is a C7. If it's just a C7, that's implying that it's a dominant or a major minor seventh. Okay, now I'm going to put, this time, another triad, but I'm going to change the third in this triad to an E flat. So now we have a minor triad. And I'm going to put a B up here. Oops, I forgot that I have to, it wants me to put all these together, so bear with me while I put all these down. And now I'm going to change this to an E flat. Okay, so now we have a C minor triad and a major seventh. This seventh chord, although it does exist, has no implication in tonal music. This would be what's called a minor major seventh because it's a minor triad plus a major seventh. This chord doesn't have any practical function in tonality, so I'm going to stop talking about it right now. And instead, I'm going to turn this B into a B flat. Now we have a minor triad, C, E flat, G, and a minor seventh between the C and the B flat. This chord is a minor seventh chord. So a minor seventh chord is minor on both sides, triad and seventh. If I turn that triad into a diminished triad, by turning the E into an E flat, the G into a G flat, this is now a diminished triad. There's no such seventh chord, no practical seventh chord that has a diminished triad and a major seventh. However, there is one that has a diminished triad and a minor seventh, which is what we have here. There's a C diminished triad, and the interval created from the C to the B flat is a minor seventh. This is what's called a half diminished seventh chord. The symbol for a half diminished seventh chord is a degree symbol with a slash through it. Actually, I may be able to find it on here. Hold on, I forgot that I had to do this. It's just like the regular diminished symbol, only it has a slash through it. So it's very similar. And no, I don't actually see it here. So you'll just have to take my word for it that it looks like the diminished symbol with a slash through it. And then the last of the seventh chords that we deal with in tonal music is this guy here. And it's already assuming because these are in the same measure that those are going to be a B flat. This is not going to be a B flat this time. Instead, it's going to be a B double flat. Now we have a C diminished triad, just as we had over here, and we have a diminished seventh. So both portions of this seventh chord are diminished, the triad and the seventh. So this is called a diminished seventh chord, sometimes also referred to as fully diminished. So a half diminished seventh chord is only half diminished because the triad is diminished, the seventh is minor. A fully diminished or just a diminished seventh chord is diminished all the way through. It's a diminished triad and a seventh. So again, the two things that you need to be concerned with when constructing seventh chords and determining qualities of seventh chords are the triad quality and the seventh quality. Some people will try to think of these as just stacked thirds, which works, but in my opinion, it's a little bit more complicated than this method. All you need to do is be able to figure out what the triad is and the seventh.